Welcome to the Model Health Show. This is fitness and nutrition expert Sean Stevenson, and I'm so grateful for you tuning in with me today. So in recent news, my son Braden, who just turned 6 years old, he is now losing his first tooth. And his mom, this is her first rodeo, seeing this happen with her child, is bugging out a little bit. And those who have kids probably understand this. You know, I've done this twice before. You know, my wife and I have been together for almost 14 years now, but I had 2 kids prior to meeting her. So I've seen the hammer time that can happen in your kid's mouth, right? One day your kid is just like, oh, you're so cute. And then the next day they look like they're an amateur boxer or something, like just missing teeth, playing hockey or whatever. And they get it sorted out. And I know that, you know, your body knows what to do a lot of times. Now, of course, there is time when you need an assist, right? When you need a Magic Johnson or Jason Kidd assist to get into the game and help fix the teeth, get them sorted out. But for now, I think it's all good. But you know, she took him for teeth cleaning, and the dentist gave her a little cautionary advice that maybe he might have some issues with the teeth coming in because of how his teeth are positioned right now. And so I start to look at some of the paperwork, and she's done printed out pictures of like the most terrible looking massacre happening with teeth that I've ever seen, like teeth on top of teeth on top of teeth. And she's like, he's gonna have shark teeth. You don't understand, he's gonna have shark teeth. And she fell victim. What I'm trying to relay is that it doesn't matter what level you're at. You can all fall victim to the internet black hole of problems, right? You know, you might have a scratchy throat or like some rash, and then you go and you start researching. Next thing you know, you're like, I for sure have Ebola, bird flu. I know it, it's on my hand. And it's just like, we need to relax a little bit. It's gonna be okay. But I can't say that, you know, and hashtag, don't say this to your wife. Don't just tell her it's going to be okay. All right. That could set you up, you know, or that she needs to calm down. Never say that. I just address and try to look at the situation in a rational and emotional position that she's in. And I didn't do the best job, but I did an okay job. All right. So right now my son is still okay, and we're working on that tooth doing its thing. Got him eating some apples and some carrots and things like that. He's excited about it. So just wanted to share that with you guys. Be careful about researching with Dr. Google, because it can have you thinking that you are literally turning into a shark. All right, a shark person. Hashtag shark people. I don't know if you guys have also seen the movie Sharknado. That just popped in my head too. True story. I got on a flight recently and saw the main character, Ian Ziering. Is that his name? Shoot. Yeah. So I got on the plane. He had the biggest smile on his face, and he's just beaming. And I saw him right after one of my friends was telling me how much they want to be a storm chaser and actually get inside a tornado. And I'm like, what? And they also said that they want to go in deep water, whatever, with sharks. And I was like, there's a movie about you, right? And they'd never seen the movie. Then I got on the plane. Synchronicity. That's what life is all about. So on that note, let's go ahead and dive in and talk about our incredible guest that we have on today. And this is a friend of mine and just somebody who is truly, truly a pioneer in this field of helping people to improve their health and fitness online. And he's been in the game for many years, and he's just amassed so much knowledge as well. So today we're going to talk about building muscle, and we're going to talk about something even more important that's going on behind the scenes when we're trying to transform our bodies, and a bunch of other cool stuff as well. But before we do that, I definitely want to give a quick shout out to the fact that so many people are now stepping up and vying for healthier options, paying more attention to the quality of the food that we're purchasing for ourselves and for our families, and also the quality of our personal care products and our household products as well. Cleaning products, things like that, that can contain some very toxic chemicals that many of them are proven to lead to things like I mentioned earlier about strange rashes, right? But also autoimmune diseases, cancers, and things of this nature. If you think about parabens, for example, that are in a lot of personal care products, or aluminum and all these other things, it can be a really treacherous area to start getting into. However, the good news is that a lot of companies are doing things right today. The not so good news is that these things can be at a premium. They can cost more because they don't have government subsidies. They don't have the support, and they don't have the funding to get on the shelves, because that shelf space at your local grocery store costs a lot of money. All right. And if you're a company like General Mills, you've got the bank to just keep your product in front of the consumer. And so what do? We go to these health food brand chain stores across the country, and also the mom and pop versions of those as well. And sometimes we pay more. This problem is finally being addressed by what I like to look at as kind of like the Costco version of Whole Foods online, which is Thrive Market. And they've really curated the very best products in nutrition, in personal care, in your household items, detergent, things like that. This is where I get my products from today. And I save so much money because they're cutting out the middleman. There is no store shelf space to buy, and they are carrying that saving onto you. And so you're literally getting products at upwards of 50% off, 25 to 50% off. And I just bought this, and I'm still using it, this huge container of coconut oil. It's the biggest container of coconut oil I've ever seen. Extra virgin, organic, all that good stuff. And I literally would have paid $20 more buying this at Whole Foods, for example. And you can actually see a list of some of my favorite items that I get from them. Just head over to thrivemarket.com, model health. Not only are you already going to get 25 to 50% off the retail prices, because you're going to that particular web address that I just shared with you, you get an exclusive 30-day free trial membership, and you get 25% off your entire first order in addition to all of that. All right, so head over, check them out. They've got non-GMO categories, gluten-free, paleo, vegetarian, whatever it is that is kind of your tag that you're looking for. They have those things, and they're from the very best companies because they've done the homework to really curate the very best brand. So head over, check them out, thrivemarket.com/model health. And now let's get to the iTunes review of the week.
Another 5-star review titled So Much Love by Mish Newman. I have to admit, I hated you about 2 years ago when I just had my first child and was getting 4 hours of sleep every night. I remember listening to your podcast thinking, yes, I know, but I'm up nursing a baby through the night. Now that my child sleeps at night, it's amazing to see how my life habits have changed. I cannot thank you enough for the doors of knowledge that you open to the entire world. Even if it is just the littlest changes, it is amazing to look at the past 2 years and see how much I have evolved from everything I've learned on this podcast. Thanks for the love.
Wow, that was incredible and very unexpected. It went from hate to love in the span of barely 2 years. But wow, what a great story. And thank you so much for sharing that and also sharing the honesty. You know, some of the stuff that we talk about can hit a pain point, you know, especially if we're in a position in life where, you know, things are questionable, especially when we're under a lot of stress. Sometimes we don't want to hear the thing. We're just in it, you know, but it's being able to have our eyes on the prize and just having access to information that things can get better, having access to information and strategies and tools, especially from people who've gone before you and who figured out a way to get from where you are to where you want to be. And thank you so much for leaving this review over on iTunes. And everybody, thank you for leaving these reviews. Please keep them coming. Head over to iTunes and leave me that review if you have yet to do so. Or whatever platform you're listening on, if you can leave a review, please pop over and do that. And speaking of people who've gone before you to pave the way, my guest today is the one and only Jay Ferruggia. And he's a fitness and lifestyle consultant for over 20 years of professional experience, working with athletes, celebrities, military personnel, and entrepreneurs. And since 1994, he has helped thousands of people transform their bodies and change their lives. He's been featured in Men's Fitness, Men's Health, Muscle and Fitness, MMA Sports, Maxim Fitness, Details, Fast Company, Entrepreneur, The Huffington Post, CBS, and ESPN, and so many other places. And now he's here to rock the house on the Model Health Show. And I'd like to welcome my friend, Jay, to the show. What's up, Jay?
Yes, sir, my man. Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
It's totally my pleasure, man. I'm so grateful to have you on the show. I was just there with you not too long ago at your awesome place.
And that was awesome. Yeah, you know, just a quick thing for the listeners, like you could listen to somebody's show, you could talk to somebody online on the phone, you could text with them, you kind of get a sense like, man, Sean seems like an amazing dude. But getting to hang out with you from the second we connected, I was like, man, this is like, we're friends for life. Like, this dude's an awesome, real, genuine dude.
Oh man, I felt the same way, man. Thank you so much for sharing that, bro.
Thank you.
Everybody,
thank you.
Please understand, Jay is seriously one of the top guys to ever do this and kind of even paved the way for myself and other people to be in this space and figuring out some things behind the scenes. But I'm curious to just kind of get started and let people know about you. And I want to know more about this story myself, man. But what was the initial inspiration for you to get into the whole field of health and fitness in the first place?
Yeah, so I grew up, in the 80s, and I was a big pro wrestling fan, wanted to be like the Ultimate Warrior and Hulk Hogan. And then on the big screen, you had Arnold and Stallone, all these larger than life guys. And I was like, man, and here I am, just like I was a chubby kid growing up. Then I was like skinny and weak and skinny fat. And I was like, man, I want to be like these guys that I see every week, And so it was like around 1986, 87, my cousin Christine was dating a guy named Eric, who was a pro wrestler, not with WWF, but in a smaller federation. He was just huge. And he was like, that was the only guy I knew that was like that at the time. I was like, I want to be like that guy. So he started writing me programs. But I was doing, I went from 0 to 100 real quick. I was doing no training, and then all of a sudden I was doing 2 hours a day of 50 sets of body part splits, and I got nowhere for about a year or so. I just couldn't move. I couldn't even comb my hair. I was sore all the time.
Right.
So I was like, man, I really got to figure this stuff out. And I just started eventually just reading everything. And then around 1993, Dorian Yates, I was kind of into, back then, you couldn't listen to the Model Health Show. You couldn't go online. All you could do was read bodybuilding magazines, So Dorian Yates came around, and he won the Mr. Olympia, and he's like, no, all that volume is way too much volume. You got to cut way back. So I switched over to that style of training, and I finally started making some progress. And then in the back of Iron Man magazine back in those days, that was where you could order books. So I would order, I don't know how, but I eventually went down the rabbit hole and got into all the old school stuff. Across the board, I've always liked just old school stuff, old school music, old school cars, old school training stuff. I was reading John McCallum and Super Squats and George Hackenschmidt and Arthur Saxon. And that was what really changed. I went from the bodybuilding style workouts of 6 days a week to 3 full body workouts, and really started making some progress. And then it just became an obsession, over time throughout high school and college. And I continued to just learn more and more. And I mean, I can get into more detail if you want, but that was the beginning.
Yes, definitely want more detail, man, because I'm wondering, what was the initial thing that got you to go from, you know what, I'm learning all this stuff, I want to teach it. So where did that crossover happen? Yeah,
so in college, I started studying exercise science, and I was ordering every VHS tape out of the back of Iron Man magazine and getting my first certification. It was just I felt like I figured something out, and it was making a huge difference in my life. I was better at sports. I had more confidence. I felt like I looked better. And so just that alone was enough to oh, man, this is really something I want to do. And I just felt empowered, being physically stronger helped me be mentally stronger and more confident. So I was like, this is really something I want to do. I want to help people. And because I had lived in pain. I was really shy and quiet and insecure all throughout my childhood. Middle school, high school, socially awkward. I got tortured by a lot of kids. I wasn't always the coolest kid. And so it made a difference for me. And I was like, I would like to help people kind of overcome some of the same things that I did.
Wow, man. Yeah, I had no idea, because when people see you now, they're like, he definitely never got bullied, ever.
Yeah, no, 100%.
Wow, man. That's powerful. And you've been able to accomplish that. You've literally helped people all over the world, since some of the listeners right now, since they were literally in diapers,
Yeah.
And I'm sure your approach to training has evolved over the years as well. And I'm curious, so we started off with, a lot of power, heavy lifting and a lot of volume. So I know that your training style has evolved. What does it look like today? Let's talk a little bit about that. You at age 18 versus you today, and just share how old you are today.
I'm 43 today. So I'll just take you back a little bit. During the heyday, when I was my biggest and my strongest, the way I trained everyone at my gym, who was predominantly, I was probably 70% athletes. Eventually I found powerlifting in Westside, and I was largely influenced by Westside Barbell Club and Louis Simmons. So we took kind of that system, and I kind of modified it for my own needs and the needs of my athletes and clients. So we had a heavy upper body day, a heavy lower body day, and then a rep upper body day, and a strongman day. And the strongman days were so much fun. To this day, people that did those days, you know, they were 18 to 22 back in those days. They're, I don't know, 35, and they'll still text and call me like, oh, I miss those days. They'll still reminisce. Like if I put up a post on Instagram, they'll talk about how those are the best days of their life. And I think that's important for anybody who owns a gym, is make it their third place. You know, make like community and connection are what people want so much in life. So that was what I really did all those years at the gym. I was like, the training's one thing, and it's awesome to help people get a scholarship or break a record or, you know, sign with a pro team. But when they say that their lives have changed and parents come in and say, you know, Billy's a better kid because he came here, or they've developed lifelong relationships, like that was so important. I always placed that just as high on the totem pole as the training itself. So anyway, because that was the kind of system we used forever. Yeah. And back then I was kind of out of control and super intense and just went way too heavy all the time, way too hard. Like Sean, I would miss a lift, right? Like let's say I would miss a heavy squat. Let's say it was 405 and we were doing, I don't know, something with chains for a triple or something. I might miss it, and then I would go insane, crank up Ice Cube, headbutt something, and be like, put an extra 25 on each side. And they'd be like, bro, you just missed it with 50 pounds lighter. I'm like, oh, no, I got this. And like, that was what I did 52 weeks a year. Yeah. So eventually you're going to accumulate a lot of injuries doing that, you know? So fast forward to where I am now at 43, definitely don't do that anymore. Finally smartened up. And I train with more of an emphasis on safety and longevity and always being ready. Like, I don't want to be crippled from my training. So where someone says, hey, bro, let's go play beach volleyball, or let's go surfing, or let's hike. And I'm like, no, I can't. Like, I destroyed myself yesterday. Right, I don't want that anymore. So it's more, you know, I'll do kind of slower tempos. I'll do safer exercises. If I'm going to do big, heavy lifts, I'll put them third or fourth in the program. So, like, let's say if I was going to back squat, I might do single leg squats and hip thrust and glute ham raises, and then squat. And then when I would squat, I might squat with chains and a slow eccentric, just to make it a lot safer. You know, if someone's a beginner at my age, they don't have to do all that because they won't be using as heavy weight, and they haven't accumulated all the injuries that I had from being stupid.
Oh, man, I love it. And just being able to be flexible, because there are some guys who still, they just keep hitting their head against the wall, and they're not really adapting to the fact that their body is just not, it's number one, it's breaking down. And number two, it's just the whole point of having your health and fitness to be able to use your body, right?
Exactly.
So what about this concept of progressive overload, and how important is that? Let's talk, first of all, explain what that is for everybody, and then how important is that right now in your life and as you move forward for all of us?
I think it's the most important concept in getting bigger and stronger is progressive overload. Now, it changes as you go through the stages of training. As a beginner, it's important, and you can add a lot of weight. So basically, progressive overload means do more weight or do more reps with the same. You have to continually challenge your body to grow and adapt. So let's say you do 6 reps with 100 pounds today. You want to do 7 reps with 100 pounds next week, or 6 reps with 105. And you try to, and you can do that as a beginner. You know, Sean, you can go up 5 pounds every workout. Yeah. But obviously that stops, or you'd be bench pressing 1,000 pounds in a few years. So what you have to do is, as you get smarter and as you evolve in your training, is I believe in variety a lot. So Louis Simmons was a huge influence of mine, and they would change workouts all the time. Same thing, Larry Scott was the first Mr. Olympia. And I remember he gave this analogy. He said, what are the 2 most common overuse injuries? Tennis elbow and golf elbow. And you get those from swinging an implement that weighs like less than a pound. So what happens if you do the same movements all the time with 200, 300, 400 pounds, even 50 pounds? You're going to get that kind of inflammation, those overuse injuries. So now as a beginner, you need to stick with the same movements so you learn them. But as you get more evolved, and it's not randomness for the sake of randomness. It might just be a slight change. So let's say you bench press with a 16-inch grip this week. Next week, it might be an 18-inch grip. You might use fat grips, like slight changes. So it's kind of the same but different. Those small changes are enough to help you avoid those overuse injuries. And then you can't set PRs, so you can't do a 45-degree incline dumbbell press for 6 weeks in a row and go up anymore as you get older. But you can slightly change it. Again, you can add fat grips to it. You can lower the incline slightly. You can pause for 2 seconds at the bottom. And that's how we track PRs more, not trying to always go in and break the record that you set last week, because that becomes impossible. But you track things, and over time, you eventually get stronger. You have to go in with that mindset at the beginning, like set PRs for the first few years. But as you get smarter and older, you can't do that anymore. You get beat up. And the other thing too is a lot of people only think of progressive overload as doing 1 to 5 reps, but you can do 15s. Like if you can do dumbbell presses, let's say a flat dumbbell press, you can do 15 reps right now with 60s. If you get to the point where you do 15 with 70s, you're going to be bigger and stronger. So it doesn't just have to be low reps. That's what I do is as I get older, I might track a 20 rep PR on, let's say, a dumbbell split squat, something like that. You're still going to be able to get stronger.
I love it, man. And there's just so much. I love that because it's getting out of the kind of cookie cutter press, pull, squat, lunge, but just adding some variety and even like the grip placement. That's something I was working on the other day. And if people follow me on Instagram, I actually, this was a couple months ago, I injured my wrist, and this was so random. I don't know if I detailed and actually shared what happened. So I'm going to go ahead and share since I've got the guy here who's been doing this stuff since, I was in middle school. I did a heavy deadlift the day before, and we'll just say, and I was doing a nice amount of reps too. So, it's heavy deadlift, maybe up, somewhere around 400 pounds. And the next day, I noticed my grip, and I've done this many times. My grip was a little bit weak. We'll just call it what it is. And I was doing a press and pull workout. So like bench press and pull-ups and that kind of thing. And so I grabbed, and I was just really feeling my Wheaties, man, this day. So I grabbed some 110s, a couple 110-pound dumbbells. And, this is basically, it's all, we're talking about, this weighs a lot more than I do, these 2 dumbbells. And I grabbed them, and I felt like one of them was going to kind of fall out of my hand, which was just a little unusual. But I was like, if I just get them up, I got it, So I sit down on the bench, I lay back, and I, kick the weights up over me. And it felt like my wrist just needed to, like, sometimes you just feel like a joint needs to pop. So I just let it. And it popped, and it felt bad, all right? But here's the problem, even at this stage, because I opened the show talking about how we can kind of fall down the rabbit hole of like bad programming, old programming, and you've talked about this too. I still finished the set. Not just that, I still finished. Of course. Finished the workout. Okay.
Right.
I went and did incline press and just all this stuff, and just like I felt like this will go away, and hard-headed guy, but I learned so much through that experience because I've been so healthy for so long. And I just kind of forgot what it's like. And when you are not able to do stuff that you're normally able to do, it starts to play with your identity a little bit, and you start to get this weird kind of envy as well. I would see just seeing people walking around, like picking up stuff. It's like, you're so lucky you could pick up that bottle, whatever, because I could barely turn my steering wheel. And, it just took a slow rehab. Eventually, of course, I went and got a scan done, and they're just like, there's, they didn't see anything. It's probably just a little bit of little drama in the joint there. And, just doing rehab exercises every day and, applying. The best thing is, and we talk about this all the time too, is just that good rest and recovery, just laying off of it a little bit, doing things you haven't done. And last thing I want to say about this, Jay, before this happened, for about a month, I kept telling myself I need to work on my grip strength. And I need to work on my mobility, and I had the steel clubs and steel maces, and they just kept calling my name, but I kept ignoring them, And so sometimes these things happen to get you to do the thing that you say you're going to do, So I could totally identify with that, man. But, something that we talked about together, and no, actually, before we get to that, your wife, I got an opportunity to hang out with her as well. Let's cater this information to the women that are listening. One of the big things today, we're seeing this huge transformation in the perception that women have of lifting weights. And that's beautiful because it's getting over that fear of like, I'm going to get bulky. I don't want to look like Arnold, And guys can't look like Arnold, He tries so hard. No. So
if it was that easy, I'd be humongous.
Exactly. But you are kind of humongous, bro. So here's the thing. What do we do for women as they want to progress and, just be the leanest, healthiest version of themselves as well as they move on in age?
Yeah, well, I find in general, females don't tend to get beat up and injured as much as males. In all the years I worked with females, I could probably count on one hand the amount of time I saw them really get injured. They tolerate volume more. They tolerate frequency more. They can do slightly more reps with a percentage of their 1 rep max. So that means, like, if I had a male, let's say we had 2 twins, a male and a female, if I give them 80% of their 1 rep max on any exercise, the female will be able to do more reps with that than the male will. So in general, I like to give females slightly higher reps, but not crazy. Like if I give a set of 5 to 7 to a guy, the female might do 6 to 8 or 7 to 9, just slightly more. And again, they can tolerate it. They recover faster. They have a higher pain threshold.
Yes.
So
Tell it, bro. Speak about this, man.
Yeah. No, they do. Absolutely. And like through all the years of training, I mean, guys would be complaining or just completely wiped out, and the girls would be, bring it, give me more.
Yeah.
That's 100% truth. They have a higher pain threshold. So I would say I tend to lean on the side of safety more with males than females, because as long as they're smart, I don't see them getting banged up that much. And they need to take the same approach as you get older, especially as you get older, because, as you age, you're going to lose muscle mass each year if you do nothing. But you can prevent that by training hard, training heavy. And even if you train at home, if you don't have barbells, you still need progressive overloading to go heavier. So let's just say you're doing step-ups and split squats for your lower body. You need to use heavier dumbbells, or at least make the exercise more challenging. So even if you just had light dumbbells, make it more challenging by doing a skater squat or a pistol squat or pausing at the bottom. You still need that progressive overload all the time. That's key.
Yes. Thank you, man, because this is so important. And for everybody listening, and especially we're talking about all the ladies that are listening right now, we cannot get caught in doing that same exercise program over and over again. Even if it worked for you and you're starting to see the results taper off a little bit, it's just, again, the progressive overload. Maybe you use a little bit heavier dumbbells. Maybe you do a little bit more volume. Maybe you do more reps like he talked about. Also, another thing was the concentric and eccentric parts of the movement. So maybe it's a squat. Maybe you go slow, much slower on the way down, and, maybe explode coming up. Or there's so many different ways to change it up, but you don't want to get stuck in a rut and doing the same thing over and over again, because your body is always trying to figure you out and get adapted.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So now this is something we talked about together, but I love to dive into it here, because I think this is the real heart of all of this stuff that we're talking about when we talk about becoming the best version of yourself. Changing your body doesn't necessarily change the deeper issues that make us want to change our appearance in the first place, right? And this was the case for you. So let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so, like I said, getting bigger and stronger definitely helped me a lot. It improved my self-confidence, and I felt better about myself. And I always agree with what Arnold says and what The Rock says. It starts in the gym. Like, that's the foundation. You got to get up, hit it, get after it. You got to take care of your body. But what I realized was sometime in my late 20s, early 30s, I was like, man, I'm 50 pounds bigger. Or actually, at that point, I graduated high school at 147 pounds, and I gotten up to 225. So I was like 80 pounds bigger than I used to be. But I was still just a bigger version of that same person, really deep down. Like, there were so many issues that I still had. And I grew up, I mentioned getting bullied and whatnot, but a lot of it came from my childhood. I remember my parents getting divorced, and before that, years of just screaming and fighting. And I was kind of scared all the time. Like, I walked around my house scared. Like, there was bottles breaking and screaming. And I never knew what was going to happen, if I was going to get yelled at or whatever. So I really lived in fear a lot. So and I carried that fear out into the public. Right. Always just kind of cowered. Like, at a party, I didn't want to talk to people. So I just realized, man, like, I got to focus on making some changes here. Like, lifting weights isn't going to do it anymore. I've gotten as far as I can with that. So I decided, let me start studying the people that I want to be like. Let me look at what they do. How do they work a room? And let me start reading more books on it. Instead of reading another book on squats or whatever, I'm going to read about human psychology and behavior, and read How to Win Friends and Influence People, and that kind of stuff. Yeah. And see, what kind of transformation that can help me make. And so instead of focusing on, like, when you grow up insecure like I do, you kind of think everybody's always looking at you and how can I fix myself and my own problems. And then I read things about other people like Jackie Robinson, quotes like that. It's like, okay, so like Jackie Robinson said, a life is not important except in the impact that it has on other lives. And I was like, yes, I'm helping a lot of people in training, but when I leave the gym, what am I doing? All I'm doing is sitting here and thinking, how can I get better? So I started focusing externally on other people. And I'd leave the house each morning with a goal. Okay, how many people can I make smile today? How many people can I say hi to? How many people can I engage? Instead of being the guy who's always looking down like this at his cell phone, never take my cell phone out. Be the guy in the elevator that says hi to people. And I would start tracking that because it was really uncomfortable for me. Like, people who know me now wouldn't think that, but it was really uncomfortable for me to do that. So the way you track your chin up or squat PR, I started tracking that. Okay, how many compliments did I give today? And at first it was really, like, I would sweat just giving someone a compliment or talking to the person in the checkout line, like the cashier, how was your day? And they don't get that, especially nowadays with everyone staring at their cell phone. So I do that all the time. And instead of how much money can I make today, how many people can I engage with? And like, that just started to change everything. And as that got going, and as I made other people smile, it's contagious. And I was like, wow, this is amazing. This is really what I want to do. This is, I don't know. I just felt like I was having a bigger impact. And so, and I think that's especially important today where we have so many issues in the world, and you turn on the TV and you see hatred and violence and racism and all that. And people are like, oh, what can we do? Sometimes it's overwhelming, but if you leave your house each morning and your goal is to make someone smile, be nice to people. And that sounds crazy. Like, that sounds like almost silly cliche, but I didn't leave the house with that focus. And now I do that all the time, and I make it a priority. That was another thing I would do. Sean, as an entrepreneur, a business owner, you can work 24/7.
Right.
But I made it a priority to, nope, I'm going to have coffee 3 days a week with friends. I'm going to book stuff on my social schedule. And then I would also take the reins. Again, this was uncomfortable for me, but I would start to make plans for everybody. So I would text everybody, hey, we're going to see Nas next Thursday. And people won't do that because everybody's busy. So you need to take the reins and start doing that. And, just things like that, like take action every day, and it just changes you. And then here's another thing, like make decisions. That was awkward for me. I was nervous and insecure. Now I always make decisions. Like, give yourself, like, pretend you're the president. Someone says something, you got to make a decision. And it could be as simple as you're out at a bar with a few friends and people say, where do you want to go next? Don't say, I don't know. Where do you want to go? You say, oh, we're going to O'Brien's. That's it. Like, just pull the trigger. And over time, that becomes who you are, and it becomes super easy. And then you attract more people into your life. And it's just crazy how it all kind of blossoms and snowballs into how I became a totally different person.
Man, I almost broke out in applause a couple of times when you were talking, man. That's so powerful and so awesome and so real. And I just hope everybody gleans some nuggets of wisdom from that. And wow, just imagine the impact that we can have if everybody listening, thousands and thousands of us right now, started to approach that in our day-to-day life. And by the way, I've been on the elevator with you and I saw you speaking to everybody on the elevator. It's crazy. Yeah. So what would happen, and this is something too, we can get complacent, especially when we might not be feeling the best, maybe we're a little tired, whatever. I think those are the best times to just pull a little deeper in yourself. And when the person at the checkout asks you, how you doing, you reply, but you also say, how you doing it today? I was like, yeah. I was about to say, how you doing? But I stopped myself. How you doing today? And engaging with them, because probably people don't ask them, or if they ask, it's just to kind of pass the time to just move on, and right. It's so powerful, man. And it starts to really build, like, I think that what you've done is you've built like emotional, mental muscles as well as the physical muscles, right?
Yeah, it's funny because we have a mutual friend named Bedros Keuilian, and whenever B has an event, even if I'm not speaking or doing something, he'll invite me. He's be like, he calls me social lubricant, because he talks about how he's kind of socially awkward. And he's like, beyond the small talk, I'm kind of done. I need you there to kind of engage everybody. And it's just so crazy that people think of me like that, because 20 years ago, no one would have thought of me like that.
Right. That's nuts. Social lubricant. I got to use that, man. That's crazy. So, guys, what we're going to do, I want to talk a little bit more about relationships, and I want to talk more about community, because it's something that he knows a lot about, and how this adds to your overall health equation and your happiness and well-being. And we're going to dive into that right after this quick break. So sit tight, and we're going to be right back. Today, we're in the midst of a new revolution with our understanding of food. We used to just be focused on this macronutrient paradigm: proteins, fats, carbohydrates. Carbohydrates and proteins got a pretty good name, but fats were dragged through the mud. Why is that? Because it's called fat. All right. The name implies something different than the other two. Because when we hear the word fat, we think about fat on our bodies. Fat in food and fat in our bodies are two totally different things. And it's like thinking if I eat blueberries, I'm going to turn blue, when you think that eating fat is going to turn you fat. It just doesn't work like that. And any of those three macronutrients can actually put fat on your body if you eat too much or the wrong types. Healthy fats, which I'm proposing that we start to call lipids or even energy, are incredibly important for every single function in your body. Your cells, every single cell in your body, we have upwards of 100 trillion cells that make you up, require fats to just maintain the integrity of your cell membranes. We're talking about the thing that holds your cells together and enables your cells to communicate. It's very important. Also, your brain. Your brain is mostly fat and water. This is why fats are so important. When you're deficient in fats, especially the right kinds of fats, you can see some big issues. So in order to address that, some of my favorite things today are MCT oils. And specifically, if we look at emulsified MCT oils that actually taste amazing. And these are medium chain triglyceride oils that are extracted from things like coconut or palm. And these medium chain triglycerides have a thermogenic effect on the body, which means they are able to positively alter your metabolism. All right, that's number one, thermogenic effect from MCT oils, positively altering your metabolism. Number two, MCTs are more easily absorbed by your cells. So unlike conventional food of any type that has to go through a pretty arduous process of digestion, turning that food stuff into you stuff, MCTs are able to go directly to your cells and provide almost instant energy. Number three, MCT oils are very protective of your microbiome. There's so much research today about the importance of having a healthy microbiome and the integrity of our gut. MCT oils are one of those things that help to support that because they're especially effective at combating viruses, parasites, bacteria. And there's so much goodness that is able to be found in these MCT oils, but you want to get the good stuff. And for me, that's why I go to onnit.com/model. That's onnit.com/MODEL to get the emulsified MCT oils, which is like a coffee creamer. These are great to add to your coffees and teas, smoothies, and things like that to get in a little bit of extra flavor plus all the benefits of MCT oils. They're easy to stir, so you don't have to throw everything into a blender just to get a nice coffee drink. But also, they taste good, and they make the process of being healthy, fun, and enjoyable. So head over, check them out. They've got vanilla, coconut, cinnamon swirl, and strawberry. It's one of my favorites. So go to onnit.com/model for 10% off your entire purchase, not just for the MCT oil, but all of the health and human performance supplements that Onnit carries, and all of their fitness equipment, gear, and so much other cool stuff. All right, head over there, check them out, onnit.com/model. Now back to the show. All right, we are back and we're talking with the one and only Jay Ferruggia, and also make sure to check out his podcast, one of the best podcasts out there. I was just a guest on the show. Honestly, one of my top 5 favorite interviews of all time. And can you let everybody know what your podcast is?
Yeah, it's Renegade Radio. You can go to renegaderadiopodcast.com and that will send you right there.
Perfect. And of course, where you're listening to this podcast, you can find them there as well on whatever app you are using. So let's talk about community. This is something you mentioned a little bit about it, and kind of taking the reins and scheduling things, like literally taking your calendar out and putting things on the board, because we can get wrapped up in our lives, just especially if you're running your own business, or, you've got a demanding job and work schedule. Let's dive in deeper and talk about why community and engaging with other humans is so important.
Yeah, I mean, that's how we evolved, right? Like we evolved in small groups of 30 to 50 people, and you were always, it'd be really rare that you'd even have any time alone. Like you'd get up, you'd hunt and gather with a group, you'd eat with everybody at the end of the day, and you'd even sleep low to the ground in small groups. Like you would never have alone time. Now we have so much alone time. Like we're more connected than ever, but less connected, because you can kind of feign connection by just staring at the device in your hand. You're like, oh, I know what everybody's doing. Why do I need to go out and meet up with them? Which is crazy. That's not real life at all. So you need to get past that, and really, it's especially important, again, if you run any kind of brick and mortar business, foster that as much as you can. I have friends who do a great job of that, And for example, in a gym, since this is a fitness-based show, if you run a gym, do things like have barbecues, have parties, meet up with people. The person at the front desk should know everybody's name. Everybody should get a birthday card. Like, do things to make people feel special. And if you're not in the fitness, or if you don't own your own business in any way, just be the guy. Like I said, no one's going to do that. So do whatever you can to foster that. And there's a great book called Never Eat Alone. And Keith Ferruggia, and he talks about being a super connector in there. So every day, one thing I try to do is connect someone I know with somebody else. And not in a way where I think like, oh, this is going to come back to me. Like, you know, it's just something good. Like, help good people meet other good people. And if they become best friends and don't want me involved anymore, cool. That's fine. You know, like, just go out of your way to help people, connecting people. And it does come back to you. People always remember the person who introduced them to this new band or this restaurant, and especially all these great people.
Right.
So always be doing that. Always try to help people. That's a goal. Do things as simple as, this is one way you can use your device. Send a text message every day to someone you love and care about. And not just, I love you, just tell them one thing about what you appreciate about them and love them, one reason you love them and why. And so, yeah, man, I just think it's just super important. Again, especially in this day and age, we could be alone so much. You need to get out and be the person who organizes that and makes people feel good and get out and do stuff.
Now, what about the argument that, you know, a person's just saying, I'm introverted. I'd rather be closed off in this room by myself. So what would you say about that?
So I you know, the more I learn about the science of that, the more I've learned some of the things I teach might not be 100% true and correct, but it's worked for me. It's worked for everyone I've coached, organizations that I've worked with. I think that's a story you're telling yourself. I always said that, and I have friends that are introverted who just said, I'm introverted, but I'll get by. I'll get by on my technical skills, my business and marketing skills. But that's not true. The most important thing in life is people skills. You have to work on that. You can't just label yourself and then say, oh, it's okay, I'm introverted. Like, no, that doesn't work. You can literally reprogram yourself like a computer if you get up every day with the intention of doing so. So we use affirmations, right? For sports or work or whatever. We'll get up every day and say, I am the most outgoing person in the world. I'm the funniest guy. I make everybody laugh. I make people feel better. There's no reason you can't do that. So you can use affirmations. You can use visualization. Like, anytime when I was working on this stuff and really struggling, if I was going to a party, I would be using visualization like Aaron Rodgers would before a game or something, or Arnold would, visualizing his biceps like a mountain peak, right? Mm-hmm. So I'll do that before, not anymore, I don't have to, but I would go to a social event. If I'm going to a party, I'm visualizing, I'm seeing myself walk in the room as the proud, happy, fun guy that I want to be. Now, I wasn't that guy, but I said, all right, I'm going to do my best Robert De Niro and play that role and go in and be that kind of person. And dude, again, eventually it does become who you are. Just like if you're playing the guitar, your fingers are going to hurt, but eventually you don't feel it anymore. You squat 135, eventually it's easy, and you squat 225. And life is progressive overload, right? That's how you can take the lessons from the gym and apply them to real life. Just get slightly better each day and each week, and then track it, and then even review it. So leave a social situation like a party or a meeting or whatever and be like, okay, what did I do? How was that? How could I be slightly better last time? I even did that. I was just at an event this weekend for 4 days with a lot of people, and I think I'm pretty good in that situation, but I had mental notes over the course of the weekend. I didn't give that person enough attention. I could have been a little better here. I see what I did wrong there, and I'll work on it. I'll try to get better. And the thing is, like anything in life, you got to get right back on the horse. So don't get down. If you go in and you're terrible, book an event. Like, go on meetup.com and go to something the next day. Like, constantly be out there doing stuff. You're not going to get better at it sitting home alone. So I always tell people, go on meetup.com, go on volunteermatch.org. Do whatever you can to constantly be out in front of people, because I don't think anyone is naturally great at this stuff. Yeah. But if you're introverted and socially awkward, it's even more important to constantly be doing it, constantly working on it.
Yeah, man. Wow. So much good stuff there. And I don't think I've ever shared this before either, but I was definitely the shy kid in school myself, you know. But I also had the kind of cool, like, mysterious this guy. But at the same time, it was really difficult, you know, because a lot of things were, going on without me being involved, and
Yeah.
it took a lot of time and just reps, like you said, to really come out of that shell. And for
Yeah.
those who say, I'm introverted, it's a gift in a way because of how you process. For me personally, being able to one of the things that I think makes me a good teacher is that I'm a really good listener. And I built up so many reps and just listening, sitting back. I'm not engaging, but I'm paying attention. And so I really feel that part of what makes me great at this experience now is that I pay attention to things. And that doesn't go anywhere, but now I also use my voice to help to share it. And there's so many stories. One of the people I'm thinking about, she is so successful, but she hit a new level of success she didn't even know was possible when she stopped using the fact that she's the most introverted person I know at that level of success, that she was using it as an excuse to not connect, right? And once she worked on that, man, it's like not only is she successful, financially and just her reach, but also she is so happy now. And she even told me like she really feels that it saved her marriage too, and it's just so beautiful to see. And also that trickles down too, to everybody else that you communicate with. And so thank you for sharing that. And everybody pay attention, get those reps in, get outside of your shell. And there's a lot of different devices. And by the way, when you mentioned be De Niro, I was like, I made a face in this guy's studio. I don't know if they noticed, but I was like, yo.
Yeah.
So you also, speaking of which with the acting and just kind of being able to go on the fly, you're doing improv right now, man. What in the world, what got you inspired to actually do something like that? Because I think it takes a lot of courage. But what lessons are you learning from that experience as well?
Yeah, so you just mentioned listening skills, right? Which is so important. Like you could be out and have a conversation with someone for an hour and literally say maybe 4 sentences. And if you ask the right questions and you're a good listener, that person will say, man, Sean's the best conversationalist I ever spoke to. And you're like, I only said 5 things. But that's how important listening is. And, to be, I think it was Dale Carnegie said, to be interesting, you have to be interested. So improv is so great for listening skills because, Sean, if you and I step out on stage and our suggestion is zoo, I have to listen to what you say. I can't pre-plan stuff in my mind. So it teaches you to listen and react on your feet. And the way I got into it was I was moving along in this kind of personal development and growth. And just like the woman you referred to, I was getting happier by the day. Like I was so happy. And I realized that making more money and getting bigger and stronger wasn't making me any happier. Now I pursued this, and every day I'm happier. So I decided I was doing more public speaking classes, and I said, let me do a stand-up class because I've always been big into stand-up comedy, which I also think is essential. Like if you're introverted and you work with people, as much as you might study business or tactics, like if you're a personal trainer or you're a chef and you practice cooking, watch stand-up comedy. Like literally pull up Netflix or something, a half hour a night, and just get that comedy and the jokes in your brain, and it'll kind of change the way you interact with people. I think that's really important homework for people. But anyway, did a stand-up class, liked it, and then my friend who's a pro wrestler one day said, hey, bro, I'm doing an improv show at Second City in Hollywood. Do you want to come? And I said, hell yeah. I've actually never seen an improv show. So I go to the show. He and 6 other people do this show, and afterwards we go out and hang out at a bar afterwards. There's a few other pro wrestlers there, and I said, now, there's no way that you made up every single thing you said that whole time, right? He's like, dude, it's improv. Like, you understand that, right? And I said, no, I know, but you had to have at least had a lot of those lines kind of in your head and you've recited them before. He's like, 100% no, not at all. I was like, I got to do this. I got to learn this. So one of the teachers from Second City was there, and then he said, the new semester starts tomorrow. I said, well, sign me up. I am there. And I went in, and I believe in the power of improv so much now that I think it should be required in all high schools and colleges because it is so good for you in any social or business situation. Again, listening skills, reacting, thinking, speak. One of the first rule of improv is yes and. So it teaches you never to say no. You always yes and your partner. So whatever they say, you say yes to, even if you disagree with it. So you're in a business meeting, instead of saying, no, that idea is terrible, you say yes, and then you figure out a way to kind of work through it. So it's really like Tina Fey has talked about how she's applied the lessons of improv to everything throughout her entire career. Amy Poehler has a great speech you could pull up online at a Harvard graduation where she talked all about it. and it's really powerful. So I really suggest if you have an improv school near you, take at least one class, and I think you'll be hooked. I mean, I only thought I was going to do one semester for 6 to 8 weeks, and I ended up being hooked for years. It's a couple of years now, so.
Amazing, amazing. And to hear this story, you know, we're talking about a guy who went from the kind of, you know, scrawny, self-described scrawny, to this strong, kind of heroic figure in fitness, and him decided to do improv. It's so unexpected, but it's so beautiful. And if you know him, you just see like, man, he just makes things better when he's around, you know? And I think that these small things, guys, adding these to the mix, or even having the courage to experiment. There are many other things besides improv, but I think it's a great tool and something maybe you might not have considered before. Now this is the first time you're hearing it, and what a great impact that it can have. So, man, thank you so much for sharing that. And by the way, also about, he gave a tip about, you know, especially if you're wanting to be more social and you're kind of in your shell, to watch stand-up comedians. I think that's a great recommendation. And, you know, if you got Netflix, you've got so many. But by the way, Jerry Seinfeld just dropped one. I don't know if you saw it yet. And he did a bit.
No, I haven't seen it yet. I can't wait to see it.
So good. He did a bit about cereal. I put it on my Insta story. Just talking about cereal and that whole thing that kind of just destroyed our lives as kids. You know, he's like, and he talked about Cookie Crisp. He's like,
oh, I did see a clip of that.
He's like,
it's not like
it's
cookies.
not like cookies.
It's actually cookies.
It is cookies. You know?
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah.
So amazing, man. And earlier and this is just right now, I haven't done this before in the show, but when I said earlier, top 5 favorite interviews, it made me think about top 5. Like, what is your top 5? Top 5 MCs. Let's get into it, man. Who you got? Top 5 MCs of all time.
All right. I can't put them in order. That's really hard. But I'm going to go Rakim, Big Daddy Kane, Eminem. And this is where it gets tough, because I think Tretch from Naughty by Nature, I think he's highly underrated because people think of only the popular songs like OPP. And, man, if you listen to that first album, like Pin the Tail on the Donkey, Yoke the Joker, and he was 19 at the time, Tretch is right there for me. Andre 3000's right there for me. You could make an argument for Black Thought or Talib. So tough. Definitely the... All right.
You win 5, you add another 2 in there. But it's tough. I know it's
so
tough.
hard.
And with Tretch, I was totally not expecting that, but I can see that. And fun fact, 8th grade talent show, we did a routine to Hip Hop Hooray, a dance sequence.
Oh, nice.
This is so random, I know, and I can remember it. We had it on VHS for so long. We all had those long shorts that were like neon colors, right? And we actually got approached by like this talent manager, something, but he was like gonna have us do shows and all this stuff. I'm so glad I didn't go down that path though. Anyway, so top 5. Let me jump in.
Have you shared your? Oh yeah, top 5. I need your top 5.
All right, let's see. All right, I'm gonna go Jay-Z because of the evolution, man, and the longevity. You've never seen anything like it before, and you know, it's just the flow and just the ability to make songs. I'd have to definitely say Biggie would be in there. I think he's probably definitely up there with the top 1 or 2 lyricists and his flow. Also Tupac, for sure, because of the delivery, like the best delivery, most passion. Who else would I go with? I'm going to go unconventional like you did too, man. I'm going to throw Lauryn Hill in the mix here because of her being an icon and her really tying in the singing and the rap at a level that, this is why we have Drake. This is why we have Nicki Minaj, for example, today. Like, she really paved the way, but it was such a level of talent and skill to what she was doing too. And let's see, one more. I'm gonna go LL Cool J.
Okay.
Because of, he changed culture. He changed culture. He brought a new kind of style to rap, and I think he's really one of the, if not the person who kind of transitioned it into more of the pop arena. And also him bringing more styles to it, like the kind of love song in the rap, you know? So that would be my top 5. It's tough, man. There's so many other people that I would say.
Super tough. Yeah, we both forgot Nas, so you could always argue.
Nas, Ice Cube. So yeah, man. Thank you for sharing that, man. And let's close with talking a little bit about routine. habits. How much does that play into overall success? You know, for a lot of people, they're trying to add in some things to try to create healthy habits. Oftentimes we think about habits, we think about bad habits, right? How important is it to cultivate positive habits? And is that even possible if you got a lot of stuff going on in your life?
Yeah, so I think what's important for everybody to do is kind of do an 80-20 evaluation across the board. I love the book, The One Thing. And I think people try to do too many things. We're all guilty of this. I still try to do it every day, so I have to remind myself. That's where I think habit and routine is important. So you evaluate your life. What do I need to stop doing? And what are the few things that are actually going to make a difference? So there's a question in The One Thing. He calls it the focusing question. And I think it's, what is the one thing I can do today? And you can apply it to all different, to your fitness, to your business, whatever. But what is the one thing I can do right now that will make it such that everything else is either unnecessary or easier to accomplish? So you kind of dial in and focus. And so I've kind of gotten into this morning routine where I get up, I meditate. It's almost cliched now to meditate, but you know, meditation really does make a difference. It's obviously not a gimmick. It's been around forever. So I get up, I meditate, I write in a journal because I want to start in a positive way. So I don't write a to-do list. I do that the night before. So I already know. You don't want to get up. You don't want to get up and react. You want to take action. So if you get up and you look at your phone, you check email and you check Instagram, you're just kind of reacting. You want to take action. So first thing in the morning, I believe it's super important that everything is off. Own that first hour, have that to yourself. And then you're in action. You're taking action instead of reacting. So I meditate, I journal. I'll write down the names of 5 people, minimum 5 people. It ends up sometimes being 17 people that I'm grateful for in my life. I write 3 things that I'm grateful. You know, 5 people, 3 things like, oh, the sun was out yesterday, or I got to the beach, or I had an amazing workout, or I had an amazing podcast with Sean, whatever it might be. So I do that. So I'm happy, I'm grateful, and that kind of just carries into the rest of the day. Then I have one most important task that I'll work on before I turn on my phone and start reacting to things like that. Because even when something bad happens, like, you know, you don't want to react to that because then your whole day is out of control. And what can you do if, let's say, your favorite singer dies? Like, I was a huge Tom Petty fan. Tom Petty died. If I knew that first thing in the morning, my whole day would have been crushed. And the reality is that each of us has a gift. Each of us can do something, like I talked about earlier, to make somebody else smile. Like, you have to be a beacon of light. And this is something like 20 years ago or even 10 years ago, if something happened, I would be down. I was one of those people who lived in the past a lot. Like, oh man, it was way better back then, or I would regret things. Yeah. You always have to move forward and just think people around you need you. Like, they need you to be that beacon of light. When things are bad, you need to smile and be happy and uplift people. So I'm kind of getting off on a tangent here.
No, it's awesome, man.
But anyway, so that's why I think it's important to just get up, do your thing, focus on you first thing in the morning to be your best self. Because if you don't love yourself and if you're not your best self, you can't do all the things that we're talking about here and that Sean talks about every week to help other people. So focus on yourself first thing in the morning before anyone else is up. Do what you need to do, and then go about your day. And the rest of my day is kind of loosely structured. At least I get that hour. I have my routines and the 3 to 4 things that I need to do. Throughout the rest of the day, you know, I'll train, obviously. I'll read. I always like to read for at least an hour a day. And like I said, I make it a point to always be out doing social activities with friends and things like that. But yeah, I mean, the routine is super important. I think Paulo Coelho said, discipline and freedom are not mutually exclusive, but mutually dependent. Yes. Because without discipline, you would sink into chaos. So it's important to have that discipline and structure in your life, and then you have more freedom.
So powerful. I've literally shared that quote on this show as well, in the context of creating habits when we did a habit episode.
Yeah.
And we'll put that in the show notes. Also, the show we did with Jay Papasan, who's a co-author of The One Thing, for everybody too. And the thing is, you are just the embodiment of these things, and you moving forward and being the light, I think that puts you in situations where you have experiences like you just had. And you were one of the last people to actually see Tom Petty. I think it was just like days before, and you were there. I think you took your mom to his concert, right?
Yes, I did. Yeah, 100%.
That's so powerful, man. And I think that also, you know, gleaning from that and what you just shared, it's not about not feeling about, you know, the things that are going on in the world. We want to move to a place of compassion. and not just sympathy and empathy. I feel bad. I feel bad for you, because that can put you in a dark place too, where you're not taking action to serve. Whereas compassion says, I understand how you feel. How can I serve? Let me do something to help to make this better. Let me do something to help to make amends and bridge you from where you are to where you want to be. And man, so powerful, man. I think you're one of the best in the game, and I think that you are just a genuinely great human being. And just grateful for you coming on the show today, man.
My brother, I appreciate it so much. Thank you. And I feel the same way about you, and you know that.
Awesome, man. Yes. Can you let everybody know where they can connect with you online and where they can, get connected to your podcast again as well?
Sure, absolutely. Since my Italian last name is really long and hard to spell, you can go to jay.fit, and that will redirect you to all my stuff. You can find all my social media on there. And again, the podcast is renegaderadiopodcast.com.
Perfect. Jay, thank you so much for coming on, man. I truly appreciate it.
Thank you, Sean.
Awesome. Everybody, thank you so much for tuning into the show today. I hope you got a lot of value out of this. Now, we've covered some serious ground here and some things that I didn't even know we'd talk about, but every single moment of this episode has tremendous value in it, because we get so caught up on the external. We get so caught up on our physical appearance or the appearance of things around us, but everything that we see is not birthed from there. Everything that we see comes from within. It comes from within the mind of ourselves as human beings, bringing our ideas into reality, and from the mind of a greater presence. And every single building, as I'm looking at this huge mixing board and my team in here, all of these things come from the mind of other people and literally from within our own spirit. And the more that we can realize that, the more that we can tap into that and understand how powerful we are, I think the more that we're going to be better off. Because right now, there are a lot of people who are feeling disempowered. And getting messages like this from people who have actually walked the path, and it hasn't been an easy road. Nobody said this was going to be easy. But the struggle part is optional. You don't have to struggle. You're definitely going to have hard times. You're going to have obstacles that get put in your path. But the struggle is optional, because it's really how you see it. It's how you view the obstacle as either the thing that's just here to take you out, or the thing that's there to make you better and to make you stronger, to help to develop dormant qualities and capacities in you that you didn't even know you had. And I truly feel that a lot of times, the things that we want, the things that we ask for, the things that we pray for, life is qualifying you for those things. It's not that you can't have them or that they're so far removed from you. These things are actually closer than you could ever realize oftentimes, but we're just not in the position that we can actually have those things. Because real talk, some of the things that you're wanting right now, you might not have the skill set and the experience and the character to be able to maintain it, right? We don't want to just have a day of happiness. We want to be able to maintain that. And so life right now is really about cultivating those skills, those capacities, those talents that you do have, because you cannot be born here and not have these things to be able to have the life that you deserve. All right. So I hope you got a lot of value out of this today. If you did, please make sure to share it up with your friends on social media, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, all that good stuff. And definitely check out Jay and his amazing work. I appreciate you so much. Take care. Have an amazing day. And I'll talk with you soon.